all you wonderful, beautiful people of the world, people who listen to these podcasts via YouTube, iTunes, and or Google Play. My name is Brendan Byberg, and for the next 50 minutes to an hour, I will be your host in this new beautiful podcast that I'm calling The Gamers Corner. Now, The Gamers Corner is going to be a bi-weekly podcast basically discussing the idea of games, old game consoles, such as like the N64, GameCube, the Wii, and bring up some new consoles like the PS4, the Nintendo Switch, and the Xbox One. Now, this is going to be a bi-weekly podcast coming out every Friday through YouTube, Google, and iTunes. And I was going to say right now, if you guys want to just click that subscribe button on YouTube, tap that beautiful subscribe button on Google Play, or pay the $1.99 fee from iTunes, that's perfectly fine. But, as I will also say, I have a Gmail account called thegamercorner100@gmail.com. If you guys do want to suggest any topics to discuss within a bi-weekly podcast, such as that kind of stuff. And for YouTube listeners, you guys can leave your beautiful comments of suggestions of what you guys want me to talk about down in the comments below. But today's topic, we're going to discuss the N64 and the GameCube, the game systems I grew up with as a child. Now, I was born in 1998, so I was born right about the time the Game Boy was released. But that was never my first game system. My first game system ever was on my birthday. I got an N64. And with the N64, I got Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Super Mario 64, and Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, most of the games, such as Mario and Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Banjo-Tooie, were both kids' games back in the day. They were rated E for everyone. However, Conker's Bad Fur Day, not so much. Conker's Bad Fur Day was more of a teen-style game with swearing, violence, blood, guts, and gore. That kind of stuff. Now, I grew up with Banjo-Kazooie. That is mainly the game I played, and I still play it to this day. This is a game I grew up with, and I played the living daylights out of it, the living shit out of it, because it was a fun game. The game came out roughly about the time Rare started producing games. I don't know the year specifically, but I might do some research on that to bring that up in the next episode. But it came out, and I got it for my birthday. And I was excited. That was my first game system ever. I didn't get the Game Boy until roughly about 2001, 2002. That's just how old I am today. But my first game system was the N64, and I was a huge fan of it. I loved how 3D it looked. The Banjo-Kazooie-esque beauty of the game was amazing. Of course, those games were very popular back in the day. Now we have VR, we've got Minecraft, we've got Fortnite. Not a big fan of Fortnite because of how cringy it is. People who don't like Fortnite, don't come after me. I'm just stating my opinion. This podcast is basically my opinion and take on games. You guys can leave suggestions of games you guys want me to talk about, discuss, and give my opinion on. But today, we just have a lot more games, such as the VR headsets you guys can play on today. You've got PlayStation 4, you've got Xbox One, you've got PC, you've got Steam and Epic stores fighting it out. See who can get the best consoles and stuff like that. But back in my day, when I was about 5 to 6, I had the N64, which was a blow cartridge. You had to blow on the cartridge to get it to work, because you could always get dust, cat hair, dog hair, water, gunk, any of that kind of stuff in the actual thing. And that always kind of defeated the purpose. Like, okay, and you gotta step it into the N64 and go dink. And if it clicked on, you got it. If you didn't, you didn't. And it was just a game of trial and error with the N64. But the N64 I still own today, and it still works beautifully. It works beautifully. Because I've kept it in mint good condition, except I need new controllers. But I can still play Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64, all that beautiful old games that I used to play. So today, we're gonna start the show off with Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. The Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie were a collection-style game, which you had to collect puzzles, well, jiggies, which are puzzle pieces, feathers, musical notes, and you could update your powers. Made by the company Rareware, which is now bought, owned, and published by Microsoft. They created a beautiful, old-style fighting duo, a bear and a bird that lived in your backpack. And if you left the controller just sitting there for an hour, they would fight each other. Kazooie would peck on Banjo's head, all that kind of stuff. And it was just fun. And of course, that game actually broke the fourth wall. That game, those kind of games I like because they used to break the fourth wall a lot. Funny enough, Rareware made Conker's Bad Fur Day as well, because they actually broke the fourth wall a lot in that game as well. And it was quite fun. It did quite well, except for all the swearing. And of course, it was remastered on the GameCube, which was a good console at the time, of course, and it was competing against the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. More people bought the Xbox, but of course, no one can beat Smash Brothers. No. We're talking about N64 games, GameCube games, the Nintendo era. Nintendo era was very popular around my time, as everyone and their brother wanted the Nintendo Game Boy, the Nintendo 64, the DS, the GameCube, stuff like that. And I started off with the N64, and I got Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Mario 64, a couple other games I don't really remember, but also I got Super Smash Brothers. Now that game was a beautiful game. It did quite well for its time because mainly it was a popular fighting game. You got to do whatever you wanted. You got to fight. You got to hell. Over the years, it's become popular. I mean, hell, it's got Smash Brothers tournaments. You can buy T-shirts. You can buy amiibos. Nintendo, I'm not plugging you, but if you want to sponsor me, ding, you get a sponsor right here because I'm talking about how beautiful your games are. And of course, everyone wanted it. My cousin had it. I had it. We used to do Smash Brothers tournaments at our grandma's house when we were at her daycare. That's mainly where we play it. But we used to do Smash tournaments and all that. Like, you got to smash, you'd be out if you lost. You used to have Banjo-Kazooie tournaments. Banjo-Tooie had a multiplayer fighting mode, which was amazing because you could make so many beautiful. I'm going to say beautiful a lot. Here's a good idea, guys. Every time I say beautiful, take a shot. You're going to be drunk and probably have a major hangover in the morning by the time this podcast or this episode is done. Now, back to the subject at hand. Banjo-Kazooie all started out with an amazing bear and bird duo. If I could, I'd put some music from Banjo-Kazooie in the background, but I'd rather not get copyright strike from Google, iTunes, and Rareware. I don't think they really care, but I don't want to be too. I want to be a little bit. I don't want to be too open and get copyright strike on my first episode of the Gamers Corner, such and such. But as I was saying, Banjo-Kazooie started out with a bear and bird duo, basically continuing of the fight against Gruntilda the Witch, who lived in Spiral Mountain, a beautiful tower plastered with her face on it, and her witch's hat was her tower leading to the top. Of course, you had to go through. It was like the main hub of the game. Like with Mario 64, you had a castle, which was your main hub, while the central outside hubs were like Bomb Bomb World, Shipwreck Island, Bowser boss fights, all that kind of stuff. You had all that stuff. And that was the central hub of the game. You got to fight with the central hub, battle, all that beautiful jazz. And of course, it became popular with me and my brother. Mainly because it was an awesome little fourth wall breaking game. What made a lot of dirty jokes back in the day that I nor my brother never got, of course. But of course, times have changed and there are a lot of bad, dirty jokes in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie that I happily get now. Of course, with Gruntilda, the idea was that Gruntilda was a very ugly hag. And her hagness made her not loved by many. So she decided, you know what the hell? I'm going to take Banjo's sister, Tootie. Yeah, it was Tootie. Tootie, and I will steal her beauty and make myself beautiful. Make myself a big-breasted, sexy woman in high heels with a soft stomach that make any man weep. Except gay men, because we like the men. But of course, with any of those style games, they did quite well with the game over screen. If you lost or you died too many times and you ran out of lives, it would show Banjo, it would show Gruntilda, and basically stealing Tootie's life force and making herself beautiful. That's a shot for everyone, of course. But of course, those games did quite well for their time. And a couple years later came out Banjo-Tooie, the sequel, which was a much more huge game. The idea was that after Gruntilda's fall from the tower, spoiler alert if anyone's never played it, but it's been out for years, why haven't you? But once she fell off her tower and died, you find out that she has sisters. And her sisters literally use a spell to bring her back to life. And of course, with that, she takes her revenge on Banjo and Kazooie by screwing over their friend Bottles. And the moment they're dead, you go on and you start advancing through this world. Now, this world was not built around the hub idea, that you were centered in one specific area. This was not a hub. This one, you got to explore the Isle of Hags, which had several different areas. You got to go to the mountaintop, you got to go to the factory district, you went to the island district, the pirates district, the hot and cold district, and all of them were centered around a specific area. You could go to the ice world, you could go to the cold world, but you were doing that with a specific purpose, to basically collect Jiggies to help the great Crystal Jiggy, or the Mighty Jiggle, yes, that's beautiful, the Mighty Jiggy, bring his beautiful worlds back to life to expand the crystals. And of course, with each world, you had power-ups. You had initiate power-ups that would help you cross between the worlds to help Gruntilda and defeat Gruntilda. And of course, those power-ups consisted of a bird smash, egg firing, backpack hopping, Banjo riding on the Kazooie's back as Kazooie climbed a hill that Banjo could not climb because it was slippery. And of course, those powers rolled on into Banjo-Tooie. With Banjo-Tooie, though, you got better powers. You actually got a fired aim. With your egg shot, you got more powerful eggs you could unlock. You got, and of course, with the Banjo-Kazooie games, I forget to mention, you had Mumbo Jumbo, or Mumbo. Mumbo the Magical Witch Doctor. Mumbo the Magical Witch Doctor basically was your transformation system. He let you transform into an ant, a pumpkin, a snow machine, stuff like that. And of course, he lets you do that with a specific level of integrity. You couldn't leave the world without having a problem. And of course, if you wanted to do something, you had to step out of the world to do it. But of course, Mumbo's powers ended, and you would move on to that, back to the Bird group. And of course, with Banjo-Kazooie, it folded in a new idea with Humba Wumba. Humba Wumba was a big-breasted Indian lady, Native American woman, who basically was a potion maker. She had a giant well of pink potion, and you needed these really ugly bird things. I don't remember what they're called, but you had to toss them into the potion system. And of course, the moment you did that, you basically could turn into a bank truck, a Hummer, a pumpkin, the TNT system, all that kind of stuff. You got to do those things. Mumbo Jumbo in the secondary game, was basically more of a secondary character you could play as through the game. And he could help you initiate powers, like get you stuff that he needed to specifically do for the world, of course. But in the second game, you weren't centered around one giant hub. you had many areas to travel from, and walking in those games was always tedious. And that's why the game invented the train station. So, in the mine section, the mine, Mad Mulch Mine, I believe it was called, and if people can correct me if I'm wrong, with those kind of things, you had a train station, a train that you had to get back working, but you needed to defeat the boss in that game, in that world, which was Old King Coal. He was a giant thing of flaming coal, of course. But with that being said, he became very popular, and the train system was very nice because it could help you traverse through the carnival world, through the ice world. And these trains could come, you had to call in, of course. The train would crawl into the station, stop. You could transfer, they could get like, there were specific items you needed the train for to get dinosaurs home from their islands. Because in the game, there was not one specific island you had to stay at. All islands were interconnected in some way. The mine level was connected with the carnival world via a spaceship system. The beautiful, the dinosaur world was connected to the bubble world or ice and fire world. There were aliens in the game. Everything was connected in a specific way. And of course, you always had to do it via the tram station. While some worlds did not have a tram station, others did. And the main world also had the central train station for the hub, which let you take items from, like, you had to drop off from a hub station from like the central world to one of the secondary worlds in the game. And of course, with that, you could collect jiggies and all that stuff via the actual puzzles. Or you could collect jiggies via the central world, because the central world had little itty-bitty hidden objects or little itty-bitty hidden quests you could do out of the central world to collect jiggies. And jiggies were the main objective in your collection-based item, as jiggies were like building puzzles, building your world, crafting your beautifulness, and making it amazing. Followed by that was a secondary collection item of notes. Notes in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie were your power-up currency. You would collect notes. A single note would cost 1. A bigger note would cost like 5 or 10 notes. But of course, you had to have a specific amount of notes to collect your payment from your friends and gentlemen. And of course, in Banjo-Kazooie, the basic idea was you could travel around the world via that, but you didn't have to travel around the world because of the central hub. The central hub was Gruntilda's castle. That was the central hub for the game. And you didn't have to travel anywhere via, you could just walk upstairs. But with Banjo-Tooie, basically of a bigger world, you actually had 2 ways of transportation. You had the train station, which was my favorite way of transportating, because you got to watch different worlds designed through the train station, which was awesome. You got to see that. But the other way was working through the silos of Bottle's military brother, or sergeant brother, he was. But you got to do that via his work. Of course, his work did really well, and of course, his business did amazingly. And he was your main power-up sequel. Of course, following the success of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie was Microsoft buying Rareware out. And then the creation of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. I played that game. I will go on rants a couple times about games that I don't like. And you'll hear me go on those rants, of course, because this is going to be one of those rants. I'm going to rant just a little bit. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolt was the shit. It was the biggest pile of shit in the golden amazingness. You got the beautiful Banjo-Kazooie, followed by the amazing Banjo-Tooie. Then, Shitface McGee, Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts. That game was a pile of horseshit. I hate to say it, Xbox. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, where you can go after me, sue me if you want to. But they were shit. They were total garbage. Because Banjo-Kazooie look nothing like their former selves. When you start the game, Banjo is fat and Kazooie is lazy. And of course, you then get buff Banjo, buff Kazooie, and you get Gruntilda back. Gruntilda basically is a skull. Just a skull, because you punt her head around. But she's basically just a skull. And that skull basically gets a giant robotic witch body, which is absolute malarkey. I could see where, if you listen to this, here's a suggestion. You could make a Banjo 3, make it as beautifully and amazing as Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, and people will forget about your flaw of Nuts and Bolts. Because Nuts and Bolts was the trash bag of your series. Because that game sucked ass. That game based around the idea that you had to drive cars. You built cars and you drove them around, whatever, and it sucked. Because that you had a central world, which was the world of gaming, run by the King Computer Man, who owns the gaming factory. That was your central hub. And your objective was to collect as many Jiggies as you possibly could to be the winner and control Spiral Mountain. That was your main objective, to try and be the winner and controller of Spiral Mountain. That was your main objective. But of course, it fell flat on its face because no one liked it. I am a major Banjo-Kazooie fan. Hell, when I heard that people from Rare, yeah, you guys can laugh all you want at my mispronunciation of names, because I do it all the goddamn time. Yeah, it's Rareware. It's Rareware. So, Rareware, people from Rareware left the company and started a new company called Platonic Studios. And Platonic Studios made the golden beauty hiding out of the pile of shit that once was Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. You just had to scrape away the shit to get to the golden coin at the bottom, which was Yooka-Laylee. Following the same idea of the bear and bat duo, bear and bird bear duo, we now follow the idea of a lizard and a bat duo, which is perfect. They've still got the snarkiness of Yooka. No, Yuka's the kind one, Laylee's the sassy one. You got the snarkiness and sassiness of Laylee, while the calm collectiveness of Yooka. And they match perfectly. And they do it well. That being said, they've changed a lot of stuff with Yooka-Laylee, which I am near dear to my heart, bring up a lot of stuff with Banjo-Kazooie. Yooka-Laylee's idea is that you are a bear, you are a lizard and a bat duo collecting pages for your magical book. Now, pages are the swap over from Jiggies, which were the puzzle pieces in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. You brought those up, and you collected them, and you opened book worlds, which were like Moody Marsh Maze, Titlestat Tropics, Ice World, Capital Casino, and then you have a Space World to unlock. You can unlock those games, basically. You can unlock the main central world. And the hub is a pun. Hivory Towers. You are going through Hivory Towers, which is the main hub of your game, of Yooka-Laylee, which is collecting the four to five main book worlds, of course. But there's a twist. You start the books out super small, but of course you could expand the book worlds with pages. Just like in Banjo-Kazooie was like one small world, but then followed by Banjo-Tooie was a massive outer world just hidden behind the walls of Spiral Mountain. Now, with Yooka-Laylee, you have basically this. I'm going to ramble a bit, so if I ramble, you guys can skip ahead and get to the next segment. All that kind of beautiful stuff. But, now, Yooka-Laylee followed the idea of you're collecting pages to stop capital B, a capitalist bumblebee who's trying to take over the world with the pages of the magic book. And of course, he did it well. I haven't beaten it yet, but I'm working on it. Those three games are the pinnacle cream of the crop with the collection-based game system. They are the cream of the crop, followed by Mario 64. Mario 64 is an amazing game following the story of Mario collecting Princess Peach from Bowser. And that one did well. But it will never be my cream of the crop is the Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, and Yooka-Laylee. They are the three main central games to complete my happiness. There are a couple other games I like, but these are the three main ones that I prefer. And of course, they do quite well. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, bringing that back up. Their worlds were subpar at best. They didn't do anything to expand the world. They just basically like, hey, you know what? We're just gonna view this beautifulness and bring this up. And of course, one level is centered around an Xbox. You go into the insides of an Xbox, and they have Microsoft and Xbox games in that system, which suck garbage. You couldn't have put any other good games? Huh? You had to make it centered around the Xbox, didn't you? Didn't you? Alright, I'm going to move on to the next subject, which is going to be the N64 and the GameCube consoles. Well, the GameCube now. I'll come back to the N64 by the end and talk about the console itself. The GameCube came out in about 2007, 2008, or 2010 because the Wii came out years later. The N64, the GameCube came out with amazing games such as Luigi's Mansion, Mario Kart. Mario Kart is also an amazing game for the N64 and GameCube because they do quite well. But, as I was saying, the GameCube came out with Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, Mario Kart, Conker's Bad Fur Day Reloaded, stuff like that. And it did well for its time. It did not sell as well because it still was competing with the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. It was competing against those. But the cream of the crop for the GameCube was Super Mario Sunshine and Super Smash Bros. Those two games did very well in the idea that they were basically the cream of the crop, as Super Mario Sunshine was a collection style game again. It wasn't the N64, it wasn't Mario Party, it wasn't anything like that. It was a collection game centered around the island of whatever the island was called. But it was centered around that specific island. I forget the name of the island, but it was centered around the idea that you were framed for Bowser Jr., basically claiming that Mario had stolen Mama Peach from Bowser and decided to hold her hostage. So Bowser, or Bowser Jr., the sweet little boy that must be protected at all times, basically had the idea that he's going to frame Mario for painting this island. Of course, it worked for some time, but it didn't work as well. That island figured it out, and that was the only game that Mario ever talked in. That was the only game that Mario ever talked in. No, not Mario. That was the only game Bowser ever talked in. Bowser never talks. He normally just goes, he always like growls and snarls and fires fireballs at you and that kind of stuff. He always does that. But he actually had a talking. And he only talked in the end. And he never talked again because no one liked it. It was not Bowser's proudest moment. Proudest moment, of course. Those two systems are the childhood systems I grew up with. I grew up with those till about I was 11 or 12. When I hit 11 or 12, I started moving into the PC gaming era. I started moving into the PS4. I moved into the Switch. Now, the nice thing about the Switch, not the Switch, the nice thing about the Wii, the Nintendo Wii, it actually still had a GameCube port on it. So I could, because the problem with GameCube, that was the biggest problem was it would break easily. If you touched it by accident or by accidentally pop something, the GameCube would break, and you'd have to buy a brand new system for it, get a beautiful new cartridge, get a whole new GameCube. But you could save everything on a disc because you used to have the GameCube save drive that you could just slap in the thing. Nice thing was with the Wii, you could actually bring your GameCube games over if you had the correct disc. So if I had wanted to play Super Mario Sunshine on there, I could. If I wanted to, I could play Luigi's Mansion. Those kind of games. The nice thing about the Wii was you could get exercise. You could actually do bowling, sword fighting, boxing, all that kind of stuff, and it'd bring up a major sweat in the world. It would be like, whew, I'm getting a sweat. I gotta sweat it out. Punch, punch. Like all that kind of stuff. You were fighting against the world. And it was good. Of course, eventually the Switch came out and the Wii U came out, and those are both doing really well. The game systems I still play today, and I still own, are the Wii and the N64. Those game systems I still play today because they are the pinnacle of old-fashioned gaming. Because now you have gamers who get upset over small things, or you got kids doing Fortnite dancing in public, which should not really be a thing. I hate to say it, I really don't like Fortnite. I hate it. It's just so bad. And if people have a problem with that, they can bring it up with me, but I'm sticking by my opinions. This podcast is based on my opinions and how I view stuff. So, back on the subject of the N64 and the GameCube, their actual systems itself. The systems were really well because with the GameCube, you could buy like several different controllers. You could buy colored controllers. You could sticker up your GameCube, stick up the controller, put several different items in it, all that kind of stuff. The basic idea was that it was a cube, it was a box, and it did really well for its time because it sold a lot. And I got mine. Me and my brother got our first GameCube system on the Christmas. We got our game system on Christmas of 2007 or 2010. I don't remember quite when. I'm an old fart. I will say that much. But the GameCube did quite well for its time because it did quite well in sales. I don't know how much it sold, but it sold quite well because they kept the GameCube programming into the Wii so people could play their GameCube games on the Wii. The idea was it was a little cube. It had AVI cables, audio, visual, and it was red, yellow, and white. You had to plug the red one into the audio. You had to plug the white one into video. No, the white one went into audio, yellow one went into video, and then the red one went into whatever else that had to go into the TV. I never really understood the red one. But you plug that in and you just pop it on and go. It was like that beautiful little cube design. And of course that now became memes. It like had Toto's Africa, Almost Heaven, like West Virginia kind of memes that became a meme around this time. That kind of stuff. And the GameCube did quite well because you could buy like GameCube controllers. You could plug in like audio stuff, make it really cool. But with the N64 did quite well for its time, mainly because it was a really cool system. Of course, the controllers don't stand the test of time. The system itself does. The system itself still stands the test of time, as I can still play it today. I can still do that kind of stuff. I can always have fun with the N64. And people, collection games are one of the pinnacle, cream of the crop collection games. That's actually going to be our next segment on today's podcast, or today's episode. Collection games. Banjo-Kazooie being the main one. It is a collection. That is my favorite collection game. Everyone, I will say, has their own collection style game, of course. But me personally, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, and Yooka-Laylee are the cream of the crop with the collection game. A collection game, for people who don't know, or a collectathon, is what some people call them, are a game where you have a specific purpose to collect one specific item. And that specific item could be jiggies, pages, stars, moons, that kind of stuff. You could just set up like, hey, welcome to my game. You got to collect this many jiggies, this many pages, this much stuff. And you got to do that within a specific time limit. Such as like Banjo-Kazooie, they had Banjo-Tooie had specific base stuff around. With Banjo-Tooie, they had a collection game. Like you had games to do, and you had to beat that game within a specific time limit and get a specific high score to collect how many items you had. Like with Banjo-Tooie, you had like with the factory world, like Gruntilda Industries, which was the factory of production of Rareware games, game consoles, and 64 stuff, and they were the pinnacle of the company. They were the company in Banjo-Tooie, selling the N64 and selling the GameCube games to the people of Isle o' Hags. And of course, you had to do that. The basic gist of that game was you had to do that kind of stuff. With that game, you went into Gruntilda Industries and you had to go through a specific section of the game where you had to collect light bulbs. Now, the collection of the light bulbs being said, you could collect tens, thousands, millions of light bulbs for a collection. And you had to collect them within a specific time limit. And if you didn't do that, you lose. You laugh, you lose. You had to collect that in a specific time limit. And the idea of this game, and it was vengeful against you. It was very vengeful. It was vengeful mainly because the idea, if you didn't do it, you lost a life. You lost all your health. And that was rage-inducing. Because I didn't do it, I had to lose a life, go back, try it again, lose a life, go back, try it again, lose a life, go back, try it again. Over that game was a trial and error program. You were on a trial and error time system, because if you didn't do it right, you didn't do it correctly. And of course, I died so many times. But the nice thing was Banjo-Kazooie's cutscene or ending system was not very forgiving. It was very forgiving. It was like, okay, you lost. Try again. It was more forgiving than Banjo-Kazooie was. Because Banjo-Kazooie's end screen was like, hey, you died. You're quitting. You're giving up on us. You're giving up on us. We're going to make you... we're going to give you the repercussions of what you've done. And they basically like, hey, Gruntilda's now a sexy-breasted woman, and your sister Tootie is an ugly, wart-faced monster. Stuff like that. But of course, with the Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie games, there was a specific way to collect pages. And they had cheat systems. They put cheat systems in their games. And it was amazing. Rare was the only company at the time willing to hint like, hey, we have a cheat system in our game. Come and try it. But you had to find the cheat system. Because if you didn't find the cheat system, you were shit out of luck. But the cheat system was Cheeto, the magic cheating book. And he helped you cheat several times. You could collect pages or specific items for him, and he'd give you a cheat code which you could input in a specific place, like unlimited health, all rooms unlocked, all levels beat, 180 notes, all that stuff. But in the sequel, Gruntilda found out that Cheeto was helping you. Cheeto, the magical book, was helping you and ripped his pages out. She made sure the first thing she did before she left the tower was to rip his pages right out. And with that being said, you could find pages again. You could find the pages, of course, and with those pages you could cheat the system just a little bit more with like extra health, all levels unlocked, you can't die, so on and so forth. And because of me, I did that. I can raise my hand in protest and say I did it because I wanted to, or because I didn't mean to do it, but I did it because I wanted to. Because I wanted to beat a game, and I cheated the system. With Cheeto, you could find millions of hidden books, and you put the combinations in correctly, you got unlimited health, all worlds unlocked, all areas open for the public. Anyone could try it out and do all that kind of stuff. And you could collect them in that way. And with Banjo-Tooie, you had, they had a temple. Cheeto's Temple is what it was called. And you went in and there was an empty board. An empty little board on the center of the temple. And you had to buddy bam, just slam Banjo, because Banjo down on his back, breaking his bones and everything. Because I felt bad. As I got older, I'm like, oh God, I'm breaking Banjo's back. Ugh. But you broke Banjo's back several times while trying to get codes in. And you got like specific codes for like health, unlimited worlds, unlimited locks, all power-ups. That will actually bit you in the butt. That one bit you in the butt because they didn't give you unlimited power-ups. You never got unlimited power-ups whatsoever. You never did. Because basically the idea was that with that idea, you were never that kind of stuff. You were never cheated. You could never cheat with unlimited power. So you had to go and collect the power-ups. That was the biggest issue. But I think it's time to end this episode. I think it's time for our game over. Thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of The Gamer's Corner. And then, as I said, bi-weekly, it's going to come up next Friday, so we're going to do that. The next Friday, I'm probably going to be with like the newer games coming out, such as there's an Arcade Spirits game coming out, which is a dating game. I'm probably going to bring up the idea of massive multiplayer or MMORPGs, RPGs, dating games, stuff like that. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like, you can just flick that subscribe button in Google Play, flick that subscribe button in YouTube, or just quietly take your mom's credit card and pay for my podcast. Secretly, don't really do that, guys. That's not really fair. You gotta ask your parents' permission. Yeah, ask your parents' permission before you start buying my podcast. You have to have parents' permission, because if you don't, I'm just gonna hop out of your phone and just bap you. Just bam. No. You cannot cheat your system. Do not take your power. Do not take your parents' credit cards. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, it's always a good day for gaming. And if you guys want a game, go have some fun. Bye, guys.